I'm super excited that so many new people are here, and some people are here that I already know. So, welcome. So, a few words to myself. I'm Dr. B, short version for Bielek, which is my last name. Heike is my first name, and I'm from Germany. And I'm a scientist, biotech scientist, biology PhD, and yeah, kind of had this epiphany one day to kind of leave everything behind because I thought the system wasn't working. And I think a lot of people will resonate with that. And I was just traveling the world, kind of finding my own purpose. And in that pathway, which I started in 2014, I came across various spiritual traditions. I did a yoga teacher training, you could say, and done a lot of meditations. And yeah, I just kind of like had this feeling that something is there that is broader than science. And I stumbled upon geometry, and I've been kind of in that realm for the last 10 years, 11 years, wrote 2 books. And yeah, I actually have been co-developing this kind of new geometric theory of the universe. That's where I come from. And I'm so excited that you guys are here. And today's topic is reality an illusion?
Think it is. I think we're all living in an illusion, and basically everything that we construct inside our head is a delayed reaction of everything that's happening outside in the 3D world.
Mm.
That's my belief. Um, uh, that's my philosophy on how I see things. Some people agree, some people won't agree. That's fine. But I just feel that's the um, how we thought that we were living in the system before, compared to what I think is actual reality. I feel is slightly different. I think reality is something that we are all spiritual beings of light, and we're all part of a huge network. Um, I feel that we can go backwards and forwards in time. I feel that we can do all sorts of things, project ourselves across huge distances, communicate without technology, and do all sorts of things. I think it is solely the limit to what we can do is literally the limit of our own imagination.
Thank you. Wow, that's deep. Thank
Sorry.
you so much. Yes,
I'll
that's
shut up
amazing.
now.
Thank you for sharing.
I just
Yes.
want to jump off the back of what Charles said, and this is probably an extension of the Zoom meeting we had the other night in our group anyway. I feel very much the same, but I wouldn't say reality is necessarily an illusion, but we make it an illusion because of the conditioning that's happening in the background with other systems to project various illusions around the current system that was already there. For me, the main engine for reality, if you like, is that of a simulation. But behind that is a very much a bistable engine of polarity. And from a personal experience, when I first learned to meditate when I was about 13, 14, coincidentally, I just started in the world of martial arts. I found looking inside myself just the image of a pendulum just swinging forward and backwards, forward and backwards, forward and backwards. And it stayed with me ever since. And then, throughout the years, you do study. But when I look at all spiritual traditions, all mystery schools, they all have this projection of polarity as the main engine. Behind enlightenment, behind ascension, behind the next step, behind our spiritual evolution. And I mean, to bottom line this and to summarize, because I don't want to monopolize too much time, for me, that polarity is like the two poles of a doorway. And you can go left or right, each side of the doorways you like, and they're infinite. But you will come to that point back in the middle, this point of origin that eventually says, this is the stairway, this is the doorway you have to step through now, having understanding of both sides of the equation, if you want to look at reality as a simulation of mathematics. And then once you balance the equation, then is the next stage to evolve beyond, if you like, the illusion.
Love it.
That's it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Actually, yeah, we'll talk about simulation theory maybe, hopefully, later. So maybe one more person would like to share 2 minutes, max?
I think reality is all about perception, how you perceive it. So, um, in my simple understanding is I don't think that this reality is only a tiny speck if you're looking at the whole quantum perspective, and that we don't have the sense organs to or developed to perceive. And often we feel, that the reality that our brain or our mind constructs. I remember hearing this from a wise sage that it feels real, but it's not true. Simply put.
So maybe let's just go to the root of the words, because and from last session, and Guchan and Fiona, you were there, and yeah, we were talking about truth, right, and what truth means, and that actually there's different types of truth that is subjective. Anything that you feel or experience is in a way true, because it's your experience, but then there is an objective truth, which is a shared truth, a common truth. And then you could say that there is an ultimate truth. And so when we talk about reality, we're actually tapping into this idea of what truth also means. So let's think about the words. What actually is real? What does real mean? Reality. Any ideas?
There's a reality that looks real on the superficial level, where, like, for example, you turn the key and the engine starts, but then there's the is real level below this, which when you turn the key, there's the electricity voltage that gets amplified by the thing. I don't know the exact structure of that, but there's like a much more intricate reasoning and logical structures that are set that on our perception looks like we just turn the key and the engine starts, but in actuality, there's many more intricate and small steps that align and is set up in a certain way that allows that to work that way.
If I just go to the actual etymology of the word real, comes from Latin, meaning matter. Yeah. So it's actually what's a physical sensory experience, what we experience with our senses. That is what is real. Okay. Now let's go into the second word. What is illusion? What is the definition of it? An illusion.
An artificial occurrence.
Maybe it's an artifact of how the brain works, like a shortcut, a hack, to help it understand its environment. So it's real to the brain, but in actual fact, it's not real. But to all intents and purposes, it's real because it's useful as a method to navigate reality.
Actually, the word comes from illudere, Latin, which means to play with. And it is actually not a lie. Something that appears as one thing, but in actuality is something else, like a mirage. So it looks like something, but it's actually something else. So when we're saying is reality an illusion, it's a kind of a polar opposites, it's a paradox, because reality is what we perceive with our senses, and that's the only way how we can actually experience anything that is considered real physical senses right now. Yeah. And then at the same time, that physical experience might be an illusion. And maybe what we could do is kind of just for a moment drop into our bodies. Yeah. Can we have together like a little awareness exercise? Yeah. And maybe just close your eyes for one moment. Maybe just sit straight. Maybe you just want to breathe in deeply into your tummy, into your chest, into your neck. And on the exhale, just let it go. Relax your mind, empty your mind. Just drop into the present moment. Right here, right now. And become aware of that reality that you are experiencing right now. How do you experience that reality right now? Become aware of the senses that you receive, the information you receive, to your body? What's the quality of that information? What is physical reality experience right now? Can you distinguish different channels of information? How do you feel in your body? What can you hear beyond my voice? Focus on the taste inside of your mouth. And the smell from your nose. And though your eyes are closed, what do you see? And is there anything else beyond that? Take a deep breath in through the tummy, the chest, and on the exhale, just slowly return. Return and open your eyes. What is the experience of real?
There's no reality, because without your senses, you can't experience anything. It's just consciousness. That's all we are, is consciousness in a matrix to experience a false reality of our choosing.
Is that answer coming from your mind, or is that answer coming from your experience?
My experience, in my consciousness, having that experience. We can choose whatever one we want.
So lots of sense data, so different channels, as you put it, with varying degrees of quality to them. And then there's something extra, which is something observing these channels. So that there's the actual data, but then there's also the observation of the data. And I would suggest the bit that's observing is actually the real us. That's the bit, that's the consciousness bit. And that is real, I would suggest. And the sense data is just a byproduct of being in this physical form. But
you're right. However, that actually does not go well with the word because we already defined the word as matter, as physical sensory experience. So actually reality is that, is actually that. Then of course we could say maybe there's an ultimate reality, ultimate reality beyond the physical senses. But the word itself is about the physical experience.
Okay. All right.
And so how many senses we have?
Well, five physical ones, but
20 odd, isn't there?
Which are the five?
You have the five, obviously, which is the see, sight, smell, touch, taste, hear. But you've got the other ones which are also physical as well, such as pain,
Where's pain coming from?
hunger.
Where's hunger coming from?
Well, it's obviously from the brain, but there are other, okay. Well, you want to see physical ones? Okay, cold, feeling cold, which then produces a physical reaction, like your hair stand up, you get goosebumps and etc. Right, so that's producing a physical action. Another physical action could be feeling happy.
Okay, this is a great input. Thank you. And yet, let's think about before we go into your other senses, which is a very interesting conversation because there might be a link to the original five. So you said it, yeah? Touch, taste, hearing, smell, seeing. Yeah, these are the five senses. Now, if we're thinking about each one, because the crux in the question, reality, if reality is an illusion, is actually in comprehending how that actually works, from let's say from a scientific point of view, So when we interact with reality with our body, right? The touch. So this is the feeling, the sensation with our skin, right? And that's not just the outside skin, that's also the inside, because it's all matter. It's about matter. How we're feeling is matter. Though, what is quite interesting is that when we're touching something, we're actually not touching anything, really, because matter itself is not a thing like solid. It's a field. Quantum physics has proven that. We have probability fields in electron cloud. You've never actually touched the true origin of matter, which is mainly in the nucleus, because 99% of the matter is in the nucleus. So really, you're just bouncing off electromagnetic fields, like magnets, kind of, and that's touch. So taste, well, taste is actually also with the body, but it's also, it's a biochemical signal that translates, just like touch, by the way, into an electrical signal that then goes into your brain. The same goes for hearing, which is actually also with your body, and smelling, which is also through your body, and seeing is also through your body, but it's a different input, because sound is sound waves and seeing is light waves. But ultimately, all of these five channels culminate into an electrical signal that transfers the information into your brain. And in your brain, that's where you actually have smell and color, and the feeling. And well, I wouldn't say maybe feeling, I'm not sure, but let's say the picture of something, right? The image that you see right now is not actually what is. There is no color in reality. You making it a color. There is wavelengths in reality. Yes, there's light wavelengths, but you are translating those wavelengths right now in your brain to make a picture. So in actuality, in a scientific term, reality is an illusion, because you'd never directly experience something. It's all a translation. And then it's a question of, what does that translation trigger? No, you said there's a feeling, there's a reaction, and some of these reactions are physical, which is in touch. It's getting cold, and obviously there's a mechanical consequence, and that's triggering a signal, and that gives you a feeling in the brain, again, a translation of information. But the truth is, right now, and this is what we scientifically know, reality per se is an illusion. So the perceptive sensory experience, the way it works, is ultimately an illusion. A very good one. But yeah, it is. And I love the, I don't know who said that about the simulation theory. Now the question is, we can go a little bit deeper, because let's say, scientifically speaking, this is actually already a truth, that this is how it is. Now the question is, though, like, what is actually then behind that information that you receive? And I want to hear your maybe thoughts on this. What do you know about, let's say, beyond science? There's other pools of knowledge, ancient traditions, spiritual scripture. Is there anything else that you can share? Do you know what other people or other cultures are saying about this topic?
The Aboriginals in Australia, they refer to it as the dream time, don't they?
Hmm.
That's their metaphor for describing the nature of reality and how it began. And
Beautiful. I didn't know that. Great. Anyone else?
Yeah, there's lots of I think it's Tibetan people that who are a bit more in tune with this, and they disbelieve completely in solid things, and they have worked out that if they can tune their mind to a certain frequency, they can push through physical objects, such as the great yogi or whatever that pushed his hand into the rock, etc., and left a handprint there.
From my experience in Vipassana, that this whole reason of being in this illusion has something to do with desires, cravings, and aversions. And if we kind of add that to the past, like if we add that concept of past, it's like those cravings, aversions, and actions creating a certain loop that keeps us entangled in this illusion is something that came up for me.
Okay, so I have also a few more examples. Like in Hindu, they call it Maya. Maya, the veil, also in esoteric teachings, Hermetic teachings. Reality as we experience is not the ultimate reality. I mean, even the sensory reality we're talking about, even that is beyond that. There's even more, right? In Buddhism, that's what kind of relates to what you were saying, which is a construction of the mind reality. Even the self is illusion, and that's also coming into the idea of like, well, why does it matter, right? So that there is actually a purpose in knowing this stuff, like to liberate yourself. That's the Buddhist pathway. Liberate yourself, detach yourself from this reality, so you can go into the next reality or beyond the reality. Plato was talking about Plato's cave. I don't know if you know that one. Is we were talking about it last time. The allegory cave, which is about basically just explaining again what we said about the senses. That it's kind of like prisoners facing a wall, and they just see the shadows, and they think that this is reality. And that's a little bit like our experience. We think that this is reality, but really the reality is much, much greater. And then we have Christianity, Islam, Judaism. They talk about that the world is temporary, that the true reality is deeper. Shamanic traditions also talk about multiple layers of reality. And then obviously, I guess, we all have maybe had experiences as well. I don't know if you've done any plant medicine, DMT, ayahuasca, psilocybin. I would like maybe to use the next moment, that I will move you into some breakout rooms. And what would be nice if you could share maybe anything that with each other that you've experienced personally. What is your perception in those altered states of consciousness? And how could you describe that? What is beyond that reality?
So just very quickly, so I've been studying with the work of Ibrahim Karim and Dr. Rob Gilbert. And he speaks about, back in ancient Egypt, that thousands of years ago, that we had access, our brains work differently. We had much more access to the right side of the brain. So we were able to tune into telepathy, seeing the various vibrations and entities it was just natural. And then as we progressed, we became more left brain. And now we seem to be changing because it's becoming more balanced. And we're having more access to our right brain. It also reminded me of the TED talk that Dr. Jill Bolte gave when she had a stroke, and it blocked out part of her left brain, and her experience of perceiving reality as all in one and merging as, she couldn't identify her hand was part of the wall. It's an incredible TED talk if you haven't seen it. And I think of Tesla, who says, if you want to understand the universe, you got to think of frequency, energy, and vibration. And then, of course, yes, I've done a few journeys on ayahuasca and psilocybin and other plant medicine. And again, the experience there, my whole perception of reality has changed. And then you just have to look at the work of Ibrahim Karim, biogeometry. It's just fascinating. The design language of nature he speaks about. And
so we're all coming back slowly. Hope you had a good exchange.
Great exchange.
Awesome. Yeah. Maybe you can share, because I'm just trying to tackle technical details, like it's working, but it's a little bit overwhelming right now. But okay, you go first.
So from our sharing, the most I think the most shared part, and actually the most interesting part beyond the just psychedelic experiences, was that all of these teachings and stuff to follow in the name of truth, when there's like doors opening and the perception like widens, and there's like a need for a teacher or some kind of guide or some kind of path to follow, has always been leading to kind of like a dead end that we shared on a deep state of, yes, like it takes us certain steps. Maybe this was more my sharing, there's something to learn in these structures, but to always be like open to detach from it and to kind of be courageous enough to keep taking steps. Other than that, we were like we had an interesting sharing of like some of us experimented with these substances to assist with the journey, and some of us haven't. And nonetheless, that this reality, this illusion, and these layers can be achieved without like with substances, without substances. There's not really like a certain unilateral, like how to say, like it's not like a one fits for all situation, that consciousness can expand on itself in infinite ways potentially.
Hi there. So yeah, I was with Sinead, and I think there was someone else in the group, but we only realized right at the end there was someone else there. So their camera wasn't on, so I apologize to that person. But yeah, I mean, I think Sinead was saying that she hasn't really had, kind of she hasn't done any plant medicines or had any really profound experiences of altered reality. But, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, because we were running out of time there, but she said the last year of her life, she's really, she's gone through some very difficult challenges, and she's been able to kind of access a kind of a sense of knowing that she will come through these challenges, that she's being supported, if you like, I guess, by the universe, that there are synchronicities at play, that there is a kind of divine order to things, I suppose, and she's become very much aware of that in the last year. I shared from my perspective that I have had some experiences with plant medicines, which were truly profound, really. And I don't regard myself as religious, but I would almost class them as like religious experiences, because of how profound they were. But probably the most profound experience I've had was without any substance. That was through a spontaneous qigong practice, working with a Shaolin monk, and that taught me many things. That firstly taught me to become the observer of myself, which I already had that ability, but it really kind of forced it upon me to become the observer of myself, because you witness your body moving, and then I also found I also it became very obvious to me that linear time is a construct, that because one of the things that happened to me, I'd enter this altered state for hours at a time where the whole world around me would slow down, but my own thought processes would be accelerated. And therefore, I could operate from a place of supreme knowing, kind of knowing what would happen before it happened, knowing the right words to speak, the right actions to take, and so on. I can go much more in depth on this, but yeah, that was largely the discussion that we had.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. Maybe one more.
Yeah, it's true. I'll share for the group. So David was sharing some experiences that he had in the early 90s, through the use of the prescription of pharmaceutical drugs that led him to almost like an ego death state, with an experience perhaps with entities where he was able to kind of process, I would say, David, some grief that he was experiencing, and that was very profoundly changing for him. Charles, I love, shared with regard to the dream state, and being able to share messages with others whom he shares a similar vibrational frequency with. And sorry, Charles, if I missed some details there. And then I was also sharing how I've been through a variety of plant medicine ceremonies, some ayahuasca ceremonies around about 5 years ago, and more recently psilocybin ceremonies, and how I've found it. Yeah, I guess the use of my words is important. Difficult to access, altered states, like didn't have any significant DMT breakthroughs when I took ayahuasca. More recently with psilocybin, had a kind of like toe in the pond of an experience of a sort of altered reality whilst kind of still firmly in this reality. And I was just kind of sharing how, you know, for me, it always feels like I'm being shown like the next step, but maybe perhaps I'm not ready or prepared or willing or open, or sometimes I feel like my brain's faulty or there's something going wrong with my antenna that doesn't allow me to access these places. So that was kind of the gist of what was shared in the group.
So Damien and I have had a number of experiences together, but we also choose to experience separately because we have different tolerance levels and stuff. So like my comfort level and his comfort level are not the same thing. And we have figured that out and decided that sometimes it's better to have those experiences where we're in different rooms or different spaces for obvious reasons. But we had a really interesting experience with something called Forhimet, which is a synthetic psilocybin derivative, which we really enjoyed and would happily do again. But it got us to the point where the blur between how you experience reality was to such an extent that we struggled to figure out whose limbs were whose, because we were cuddled up under a blanket. And I was like, I need to get up, but I literally don't know how to operate, which legs I need to operate to leave this space and move somewhere else. And it took us like lots of giggling and lots of laughter, and everything felt really silky and soft, like it was all covered in like olive oil or something. So it really did change our senses. And one of the things that we saw, which I think you can experience if you take enough MDMA as well, is like the sacred geometry overlay on everything. So everything's kind of maybe got a bit of a sparkle, glittery, just overlay of all of these beautiful patterns. So yeah, we've only done the Forhimet once, but we have kind of microdosing and those kinds of experiences built into our lifestyle, because with my neurodiversity, I find it really helps me balance things, helps me avoid becoming overwhelmed. And I think whoever it was who was just saying about struggling to make the connection, I think sometimes, depending on where in the neurodiverse spectrum you sit, there are barriers that you build and there are barriers that are put on you about how you experience these things. So yeah, it's not, I don't think it's unusual for people to struggle sometimes, and having guides can be really, really beneficial.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. Wow, it's very interesting. So I would say that what you would all say is an expansion of perception of reality. Would you agree with that, with those experiences? Yeah. So we were saying, okay, physical senses is one way, and that's already an illusion. But when you are on alternate states of consciousness, which can be with plant medicine or not, as Wuchan said, it broadens the awareness to something deeper, to reality itself. And now the question is, if reality is an illusion, okay, but the illusion still has consistency. Yeah. So we have, let's say, similar, very different, but also kind of similar experiences, you know, like geometry, I heard now, patterns, a bigger sense of feeling or whatever. So when we were discussing last week about truth, you know, and how could we define truth? Is there a common truth? Are there universal laws? It actually all boils down to geometry in that. And I guess a lot of the plant medicine experiences that show us this as well. And Plato from ancient Greece, he was saying actually reality is kind of like the real reality is like the world of forms. So everything is based on geometric structure. And our reality, like this reality, is kind of like imperfect copies. Because, you know, in nature or whatever, you see patterns, but they're not actually perfect. So it's kind of like now just kind of making the link back to simulation theory, which some of you were mentioning in the beginning. If there's, let's say, a projection of reality, like a rendered image on the screen, on the computer, you see me now on the computer. Am I real? Is that image real? Well, I'm real here, but actually it's, again, a translation of the light I'm emitting and being processed through this machine, electrical signal, actually, through the computer and rendered on your screen. So it's just a way of a process of information in certain ways. And underneath this process, the computer itself is just a code, right? So in a way, what you were saying, David, about the Matrix, I also completely blew my mind when I saw the Matrix, because it kind of has some solidity in that thought. Yeah, reality is an illusion, and there is a mathematical, well, there's common mathematical laws, that actually science is built on. We're creating these frameworks, mathematical frameworks that describe the way we perceive the reality through scientific experimentation, try to find the patterns and the results that are repeatable, so we come closer to the idea: what is this machine? How does it work? How is this divine order, some are saying, actually function? How is the code working? Um, and in a way, when we start to get to know more about reality, and our perception of knowledge and integration of knowledge has shifted a lot throughout human history, like it kind of reflects in the things we built. So computers obviously is a kind of an semi-advanced, I would say, semi-advanced technology that uses some of that knowledge to create something in reality that is useful for us. And so this whole next layer, of let's say virtual realities, games that we play, yeah, it starts to maybe bring this question, if I'm playing a game and I'm in the game, and in the game I'm moving and I'm jumping around and do all these things on the 2D screen, but the real me in this scenario is just sitting here still. I'm just playing an avatar. Maybe the reality we experience is actually not so different. Maybe we are also just in a game right now. It's higher dimensional, not 2D. It's 3D right now. Though time, you would say, yeah, fourth dimensional aspect. But the real reality, as you said, David, or some others were also mentioning it, the idea of observer, that there is actually something that is beyond that, the true you, beyond the mind. That's what Buddhism was saying, deconstruction of the mind, because the real you doesn't have a mind. Using the mind as a great tool to comprehend this reality, but the real you is infinite. It's it is all, in a way. It is reality. It is the creation and the creator at the same time. And then it dives very deeply into some of the bigger philosophical questions. And so what does this information then do with us, once we're stepping into the idea, wanting to explore this code, this structure of reality, the geometry, or sacred geometry. Maybe I can ask you this last final question: what happens if you start to comprehend that? How does it change your life?
Yeah, just to add to what you were saying there, going back to Plato's cave. So you've got the shadows on the wall, which then begs the question, who's making the shadow? So there's another aspect to us that's in a different dimension, that's projecting or somehow in this reality. But there's a duality there. The consciousness is split, I would suggest. So people refer to a higher self, or different ways of saying the same thing, I guess. But and the other implication of a simulation is that it's a copy of something that's real. So by definition, this is not real. This is not base reality. But anyway, so yeah, there is that, and then so how do you use that, or what's the so if you think of yourself in this realm, the shadow on the wall, as the actor, then presumably if you observe the actor, then you can be the director and the scriptwriter of the play that you're currently acting in. So you're sort of you can have multiple perspectives on yourself and on reality, and as you can sort of game the system, as it were. So that would be the application of that information, I would suggest.
That's pretty much exactly what Neville Goddard says about the four roles. the actor, the producer, the director, right? Screenwriter. So you're creating everything, and that's what you need to be. And once you see yourself in that position, that's when you're able to project and create your own reality in some respect.
Yeah, I call it bending the spoon. Apparently, there is no spoon.
I'm very comfortable with like observing Fiona doing her thing. It's just, it seems a very obvious and natural indicated way to be. Of course, there's something behind the identity. It's if I would think of any purpose of feeling comfortable or just feeling at ease with that notion of the observer, it would be to just when this physical form isn't the vehicle anymore, is to maintain that awareness and be present for the shift, you know, and be as the human body living this reality now. I want to give it the gift of being relaxed and comfortable when the shift happens in the linear time construct.
Oh, wow. You guys are all so amazing and so aware. And yeah, so much interesting stuff you've been saying today. I'm very grateful for you joining this group. And maybe my final words is coming back to geometry, because that's where my expertise is. Because for me, geometry has been the key to unlock that structure. And has also been the key to comprehend my own role within this reality, and my own understanding of the situations and the patterns that appear in my reality, the good and the bad, and seeing it from a different perspective so I can navigate life in a broader way. And I think that's the most precious thing for me, to hold that knowledge. It's just the way I perceive reality differently, and that affects my conscious and unconscious patterns. And I'm obviously still on a journey, and that journey will never stop. But yeah, the Hermetic teachings were calling it the sphere of sensation. You are like a dot in the sphere, and the sphere is like the projection of reality. Yeah, so the 3D reality you think exists is actually just as big as your arms, and everything else is just a 2D projection. So you're just in a sphere, like a movie, and the true nature of your body is a dot, is a center of your being, which is not physical matter because it doesn't have any space. And from that dot, you navigate reality, which has infinite potential, and from which you can connect to everything that exists. And it really, when we're taking into consideration again the ancient cultures, the purpose of this game is not just this life. In this life we're, when you're in a game and there's certain challenges, you want to jump over a bridge or whatever, you are faced with challenges. It's natural you're faced with challenges. Sinet, was it? We all are. Yeah, we all have to face our own stuff. No matter where we are, or no matter how spiritual we are, we all have maybe another level of challenges that we have to encounter and overcome. And that's the infinite game, the law of karma and dharma, the service to humanity. So we can basically detach ourselves ultimately, liberate ourselves ultimately from this limitation, and then step into the ultimate truth, which is actually coming back to the source, which is all that exists, where there is no duality. It's all just one. That being said, thank you so much, everyone. I'm so stoked that we're all here. I'll probably continue this kind of series as long as I still have time, but I do actually offer also events where we tap into the actual building blocks of how it works. Not just that it exists, but actually the sequence and progress, how it actually functions, and how that relates to actual scientific data, and how it relates to all of the spiritual traditions without exceptions. There's a holistic understanding that I've been developing with Colin Power, who is not in this call. Over the last 10 years, I wrote two books about it. So I will be offering various events online in the coming future. So if you do actually want to decode it properly, which means you have to draw, you have to construct, because it's a very difficult situation when you just try to imagine something. You actually have to make it, building like Leonardo da Vinci, like the great builders of the past. So if you're interested in that as well, I will be putting more information out in the WhatsApp group, and so we can stay connected.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye. Thanks, Dr. D.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.